Hello, this is Elizabeth Brewington with Discover Bright Side, a video and a podcast channel with multimedia reach. And we are so excited today to have Terry Weber, who's a pilot and a female pilot. So I know we've had some helicopter pilots, but you're our first pilot on the show. And we happen to live in Seymour Johnson, so we are in pilot land, as they say, because this is the training base. So I am so excited to have you on our show. So tell us how you became a pilot and share your story, and then we'll get into the book.
Sounds good. Like she said, my name is Terry Weber. I'm a fourth generation military officer. So, grew up in a military family, always knew that I wanted to serve, and was just kind of interested in aviation, thought that might be a good fit. So, I did ROTC in college, commissioned right out of Baylor University, went straight to flight school. I actually did my flight training with the Navy down in Pensacola at Whiting Field. Before going back to the Air Force, selecting C-17s, which was my first choice of platform. So it's a heavy four engine cargo jet with a really cool airlift and airdrop capability. So did that. And then, yeah, I've been active duty now for 13 years. Started my book series a couple of years ago when my son was born. And that just started as like a fun passion project kind of way to share my lifestyle in a kid friendly way. And
Yes.
sort of translate my job to a more like approachable, realistic kind of way for him to interpret it. So yeah, that was a couple years ago. Signed with a wonderful publisher, and then the books have just started rolling out this year. So we've already had two released. We have one coming out in September. So it's just been a really fun journey that's been all over the place a little bit. Been able to use multiple parts of my brain, that creative thinking, kind of the analytical pilot engineering side as well. So no, it's been a great experience so far.
Sounds to me very exciting. Yeah. And to have a book for kids, because one of the goals we have is literacy. We want people to read more. We want people to buy books and start libraries. And because we're going to lose reading abilities if we just have, these videos. So tell us, what was your inspiration, some of your challenges, and some of your victories? Because being a female pilot, you must have gone through a lot of, ups and downs. Yeah.
Yeah, there aren't a lot of us. Female pilots make up only about 7% of military aviators. So we're a small community. We're a very close knit community, though. It is like a little sorority in and of itself. So that is a lot of fun getting to have that camaraderie with other female pilots. I would say that I've had very similar experiences as a lot of the male pilots. The beauty of aviation is it's very very objective. So you go through the same training. The jet doesn't care if you're a woman or a man. It just cares if you can
That's
land it
right.
safely. The parameters are relatively objective. You have to land within a certain amount of knots of your threshold. You have to touch down at a certain foot past your landing point. So there's not a lot of gray area there. So that I think was an advantage in being a little bit different, being a female in a very predominantly male world, was kind of having that to fall back on and say, like, look, I'm meeting the same standards as everybody else, if not exceeding them. So being able to point to that and having that kind of credibility in my hip pocket was very helpful. It
Yeah.
continues to be helpful, I think, in this community of aviation.
I think you've definitely hit it because females have a credibility issue. Just because we are females, we're supposed to be like wizards and be fantastic, and we're set up for a higher standard for sure. And I
It
think
is
that
very, yeah, it's challenging in that because you are people recognize you and they focus on you, and it's easy to stand out, sometimes not in a good way. Like I remember going through flight school and all I wanted to do was blend in and like try not
I know
to
just be
draw any extra attention to myself. And I didn't in any way, good or bad. Like I just wanted to be one
yeah.
of the group, but it's kind of physically impossible. Like I'm a 6 foot tall redhead and I'm a female in a very predominantly male world. So there is that disadvantage, I would say, that, if you want to blend in, like it's really hard to do that.
Yeah, I know. It's so true. And maybe, as time goes on, maybe, the next generation will have it easier because you've set a trend. Um, yeah, so tell us about the book. What's been your process for writing it and publishing it? Did you experience writer block? Did you take a long time? Did you take a short time? What were some of your experiences with writing your first book?
So I started out writing in the opposite way that the books were actually released. So my first book that I wrote was Moose on a Mission, and that details the C-17. So my books are kind of like Disney's Cars meets Top Gun if it was Air Force jets. So it's anthropomorphized aircraft. They're kind of like doing a day in their life. So there's a little bit of that nonfiction element to where when kids read it, they can say, "Oh, now I know, what an F-22 does all day, what a
Yeah.
C-17 does." So I kind of translate that mission a little bit to, again, be more kid friendly and approachable. So I wrote Moose on a Mission as a means to translate my job. I'm a C-17 instructor pilot, so I'm very familiar with the C-17. I'm the subject matter expert. I really love that community, and I wanted to share that with my son. And there wasn't anything available to do so at the time. And it was actually my husband's idea. I mentioned one day we were reading to him before bed, and I just mentioned like, "Oh, I wish there was a C-17 book." My husband was like, "Well, you should just write it." And I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, okay, why not?" So yeah, it just kind of started as like a fun thing to do in the house. I just did it like during my lunch breaks during work and after my son went to sleep. And then I really enjoyed the process and like that kind of creative, flexing that creative muscle a little bit. So it started out with Moose, and then I just kept building on it from there. So the second book I wrote, Toad the Tanker, is about a KC-135. And Moose is also in there. So the characters kind of overlap a little bit. And I did that intentionally so kids could read in the books, and recognize like their friends, their characters. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then after that came the F-22 book, which is Fly with Mai Tai. So Moose on a Mission was a quick write for me, for the first iteration at least, but I went back and read it so many times. I think I was at an advantage and a disadvantage in being so close to that community and knowing so much about it that it was really hard for me to distill the details down, because all of it is exciting to me and all of it I loved and all of it I wanted to share, but you're limited to 32 pages and however many stanzas. So yeah, Moose was tricky because I knew too much. On the flip side, the F-22 book that I did focuses on fighter jets. And I'm a mobility pilot. I don't have a lot of background with the fighter community. I work with fighter pilots a lot. Like I've been in wings with fighter pilots, but from like a day-to-day operational standpoint, that is certainly not my area of expertise. So Mai Tai was challenging on the other end where I didn't know enough. So that's kind of where tapping into my network and talking to friends who are F-22 pilots and there's F-16s in the book, so I've got some good girlfriends who are F-16s pilots, so talking to them and really just doing a lot of thorough research, and then distilling it down from there. Toad, surprisingly, was the easiest of all three. I think because it kind of met in the middle where like I knew just enough being a mobility pilot to be able to write it primarily on my own, but I wasn't like so close to it that I couldn't step back, So
Yeah.
yeah, it was opposite in that, Mai Tai was published first and now Moose is going to be coming out last. But it's just kind of how it played out.
Yeah, it's amazing because you've got a full-time job, you're juggling, being motherhood and family life, and then you've also written a book, so kudos to you. And I think the fact that more kids would read the book would get inspired to be pilots. I think it's just inspiration. Your son must adore you. I can just tell. Yeah.
It depends on the day. If I don't put Daniel Tiger on, I'm not his favorite person.
Um, so who's your audience? I mean, how would you define your audience for the book?
So I would say my niche, like my easiest sell, if you will, is kids of military families, particularly kids with parents who are in the aviation community. So, I have a lot of readers, a lot of parents who purchase the books for their kids for the same reason that I wrote them, which was to kind of translate the mission to their children. So friends who are parents, but also F-22 pilots, friends who are parents who are KC-135 pilots, C-17 load masters, boom operators. Like that is kind of my niche, I would say. But I'm passionate about my books and that they're not so niche down that they're not like applicable for everybody. They're written in
Yeah.
rhyme. I've got a wonderful poetry editor. So they're very easy to read. They're kind of, like I said, they're a day in the life. So they start at the morning, when the jet first wakes up and it takes it through its day. And then at the end of every book, the jet's going to bed. So they're good bedtime stories. And then all of them kind of have a little like subtle message in them as well that's not anything military related. So I think there is a little bit of extra approachability to them in that way, where somebody who doesn't have any background with the military or isn't experienced in aviation could easily pick it up, and be like, oh, my kid loves airplanes. Like, here's this book about fighter jets. And I think it would still have the same level of
Yeah, yeah.
applicability for them.
Oh, that's awesome. And then marketing. I mean, what are some of the marketing and promotional things that you're doing, and how are you marketing the book?
So I'm very fortunate. My publisher is Elba Reza Publishing, and they are a military family focused publishing house, which is why I chose to go with them. I think we're very well suited with my books being, military focused, and they're also military focused. So they do a lot of the marketing from their side of the house, and then myself and the illustrator, we kind of work our respective channels.
Yeah.
So with me being close to the aviation community and being active duty, and having not necessarily contacts, but like friends in the community, and just word of mouth. And, I'm on social media relatively active. I'm very easy to reach on Instagram and LinkedIn, and, just knowing people, and just having friends say, oh, have you heard about this book? Like, you
Yes.
so that's been kind of my angle. I'm more of the like
Yeah.
inside job, if you will. And my publisher is primarily more of the marketing.
Good. That sounds terrific. Yeah, so any future projects, any future books, or is this the book launch that we're talking about?
So I've got one more coming out that's set for release September 10th. That's Moose on a Mission. And then the illustrator and I have been talking. We've got some other ideas that we would like to tap into for the series for Operation Aviation. The timeline for that remains to be seen, but I have started working and researching, and the notes app in my phone is just crammed with ideas and rhymes and
Wow.
all that kind of stuff. So that's a work in progress. And then I do have some other ideas for different genres that I'd like to potentially get into.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of stuff coming up. It's just the timeline is still pushed.
What about a movie deal? I mean, I think the book, I haven't read the book, of course. I'm going to try to get it, but what about a movie or future projects or an expansion of the franchise?
Oh, I love that. Absolutely. There's been some rumors, conversations happening on the publishing side of the house with rights and all the bureaucracy associated with that. But from a creative standpoint, absolutely, that would be the dream. I'd love to expand and kind of see what other creative outlets we could approach with this series. I think there's a lot of good opportunity there with it. Again, it kind of has the broad appeal of like everybody
Yeah.
loves a fighter jet, so yeah, it's a good question. I'm definitely game.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. So wonderful. I think Elton is joining us, so I'm going to let him ask you a few questions and then I'll
Sounds
close you
good.
out. Yeah.
Well, good
Uh,
afternoon. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Great, great. Thanks. I mean, what an amazing story. I mean, I mean, did you have ambitions to be a pilot from an early age?
I don't know if ambition's the right word. I think I was always interested in aviation.
Hmm.
Um, Maybe in high school is when I started to think seriously about, maybe I could pursue a career in this. I knew I wanted to serve in the military. So that was kind of expected, I think, of myself early. And then once I realized that aviation could be another component of that, yeah, that probably high school is when I first started getting that on my radar.
Were your parents involved in aviation?
Not in aviation, nope. So I'm fourth generation military, but everybody else who came before me was Army, with the exception of my great grandfather, who started as Army and ended up actually retiring in the Army Air Corps before it transitioned to the Air Force. But he wasn't a flyer. My dad's a tank driver.
Oh,
He's a
wow. Great.
Yeah, and then my mom's ordnance. So yeah,
Doesn't
just a lot of history with the Army. But I'm the first Air Force. I'm kind of My family jokes that I'm like the huge disappointment of the family that I went Air Force instead of Army.
what are your parents, what are they suggesting that you are, the commercial piloting, of course, but what's their perspective? I mean, when you said that you were on track to be a pilot.
I mean, my parents have always been very supportive of whatever my brother and I chose to do. Even coming from a long line of military background, they were never pushy about it.
Right.
Never, that was never an external expectation for me. I knew they would be supportive, and I knew they would, help, with the translation and that kind of thing and the support. But there was never a pressure, I would say, from them. But certainly a lot of support, and excitement and enthusiasm, and emotional hand holding when I was going through the challenging stuff. And
Sure.
they did have a bit of an inside perspective, obviously, that not a lot of people do. And my mother, especially, because she was, an Army officer back in the day when there weren't a lot of female officers at all. So
Mm,
she had that unique perspective, I think, that was able to kind of glean some insight, that helped a lot as I went through the process.
well, congratulations. What great work. I mean, in terms of what you're captivated to do, sky's the limit.
That's right.
Yeah. Are you looking to do commercial piloting?
I don't think so.
No?
I've really enjoyed my time with military aviation, and it's an easy transition out of the C-17 into the commercial world, which is what a lot of my coworkers and colleagues are doing right now. But for me, the appeal of military aviation is specific to military aviation. The things that I love about my community, you can't get on the outside.
Mhm.
Whether that be air refueling or flying on NVGs and doing tactical assault landings, or doing hurricane relief support, and stuff like that, the very specific things that you wouldn't be able to get in the outside world. So for me, it's never been about the flying. It's more been about what the flying has afforded me and those opportunities and those experiences. And I don't think I would get that on the outside. So.
Oh, well, you never know. And your story is unique in its own way. I mean, and being able to fly, the women pilots. There are quite a few women pilots and a few African American women pilots. At the end of the day, what it means, what it could mean, and where you go from here. So how much time do you have left in the military?
So I'm on my 13th year of active duty right now. I'm planning to separate from active duty at the end of September.
Okay.
And then debating going guard or reserve, so joining the ARC, which is the reserve component. So I might still be doing something part-time with the Air Force. But yeah, my active duty career is coming to an end after a long time. It's really weird. I've 18 years as a military brat, 4 years as a cadet, now 13 years active duty. It's a new chapter that I've never ventured into before. So it's
Well, I'm
exciting.
sure.
Well, thank you for your
Mhm,
service. That's a
mhm,
long
Oh,
time
thanks.
to give
mhm,
of your life.
mhm,
So, what are
mhm.
you going to do now that you're going to retire? What are your future plans?
So, like I said, I might join the Garter Reserve and do part-time Air Force, just kind of scratch that itch, and stay in the military community. My husband is an active duty Marine, so I'll still be involved in the military in that capacity. And then I don't know, I would like to take some time to just write full time, really kind of delve into the creative pursuits. Like you were mentioning earlier, potentially media or whatever other opportunities kind of arise, either with this series or otherwise. And then my kids are really young. I've got a just turned 1 year old and a just turned 3 year old. So I'm excited to maybe be a little bit more present and not be stuck on the metro, commuting to and from the Pentagon every day. So I think it's a good time to step away and take some good quality time with the kids and my family, and focus on the creative pursuits for now. But to be determined, it's a good question that I don't have a great
Well,
answer for you.
as it were, I mean, there are probably not many people you could use or get examples for directions from. So, as again, the sky's the limit. It's your
Fly girl.
course, yeah, and
So I
what it
noticed
means.
you have a tagline, Fly Girl. What's that all about? Just fly.
Yeah, so Fly Like a Girl. It's an incentive that was started in the female military aviation community. That was started as kind of like a joke, because you always hear like, "Oh, you throw like a girl, you run like a girl." So we kind of decided to reclaim that and say, "Well, we're going to fly like a girl." And then there's a wonderful artist who her brand is Plain Old Art, Plane, like fly plain old art. And she actually designed the graphic for the Fly Like a Girl logo. She's an F-16 pilot, so I think one day she just like took a selfie in the cockpit and was like, "Oh, I'll draw a sketch of this." So yeah, it just turned into like this fun little brand that we have amongst ourselves. You can purchase stickers or patches. She's got a whole Instagram that shows her artwork, and you'll just see those stickers kind of all over the place amongst female military aviators. It's just kind of our our thing now, but she expanded the artwork so they're more inclusive. So we have like an Asian fly like a girl, there's a black fly like a girl, there's a Latina, I think there's a blonde and a brunette. So yeah, lots of inclusivity with that graphic, which has turned out to be a really fun thing. Not
Oh,
a redhead yet, but me and a red Sharpie have
we
we
need a
figured that
redhead. Absolutely. So yeah, we'll look it up. And Elton, last minute
Oh,
questions.
congratulations. And
Thank you for your
yeah,
service.
thank you for your service.
Oh, thanks, guys. Thank you. It was so much fun talking to you guys.
Of
Yeah.
all the best, and it's a perfect time to look for examples. You seem like you're good at setting examples, so look for new examples to set, that can make a difference tomorrow.
So you're watching Discover Bright Side. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit the button. Make sure you buy the books, especially all our military families. We would love you to have that book. And if you're a librarian, stock the books. If you're a bookseller, we want you to buy the books. And if Netflix or any movie producers want to do a movie, she's ready.
I'm
And
down.
yeah,
Sounds like fun.
and we wish you much success.
Thank you so much.
You're watching discoverbrightside.com. Okay, let me